I think these people should be fired. They obviously broke some laws. There are some laws out there to protect my rights as an employed person that they broke, and not only broke in stupendous fashion.
Before we begin our episode for today, I'd like to encourage you all to like, comment, subscribe to, and share these podcasts with those around you. The mission of our podcast is chiefly to raise awareness about issues of government overreach. Unfortunately, for freedom lovers everywhere, there are too many to mention. We hope that in listening to this podcast, you will be inspired and empowered to not only stand up for your own rights, but to educate and inform others to stand up for theirs. When we work together, we are hard to stop. Every week, we are given another opportunity to see another example of brave patriots who have put everything on the line to take hold of their God-given constitutional rights. Please spread the word, sign up for our email newsletters, and become a member of Feds for Freedom at fedsforfreedom.org.
Welcome to the Feds, insiders bringing accountability, integrity, and reform to a broken bureaucracy. At Feds for Freedom, we value constructive dissent and healthy debate. The views and opinions shared in today's episode are those of the speaker alone and do not express the views or opinions of the U.S. government or any other employer.
This week, we are joined by Michael Schaecher, a computer technician with the North Carolina National Guard. After receiving the COVID shot, he refused to show his medical records as proof of his vaccination. Refusal to show these papers in the federal realm meant being treated as an unjabbed individual. Michael has been put on leave with pay indefinitely since 2021. He has been labeled an insider threat by his superiors, and his face is on the walls of the military security stations in North Carolina, calling the security personnel to be on the lookout for Michael. Today, he tells his bizarre story and thoughts on how the EEOC needs to be flooded with complaints for our position to be heard. Michael, thank you so much for coming up from North Carolina to join us today. It's a great treat to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Why don't you tell us your background, where you grew up?
So I'm born, raised, and still live in the same town that I was born in. So North Carolina is and always will be my home. I love it there. I love the environment.
And it really is incredible to me that you have such a thick accent, yet my husband comes from the same place and has absolutely no accent.
And here I would say I don't have an accent, but I don't hear it anymore.
Well, what does that make me have? Talk about no accent.
You have a very proper accent, is where I would say it. But I'm guessing it comes from your background.
Yes. I grew up around here. Well, that makes sense. Okay. So you work for the North Carolina National Guard. How did you start working for them?
So in high school, pretty much I was told if I wanted to go to college, I had to figure it out. The next week, the military came to my high school, and I figured out which one gave the most money for college, and here I am. I joined the North Carolina National Guard because they gave the best incentive, best programs, and the fact that I could still stay in North Carolina, obviously, was really important to me. I was able to help my state, the state that I love.
Mm-hmm. And so what was your job within the National Guard? And you were both active duty and became a civilian.
I spent some time active with the National Guard, and I did become a civilian with the National Guard. In service, I started off doing finance, payroll stuff. And after I got my degree in computer science, I ended up switching over to IT, computer tech for the National Guard, and eventually in service became a warrant officer for the North Carolina National Guard. Once I got all my college done, I started off as a federal technician with the National Guard in finance, obviously.
What does that mean?
I was a federal employee, but a civilian that worked for the National Guard.
And a technician in what capacity?
Just that's what we call civilian technician. We just call them civilian and federal employees technicians.
So you worked with computers?
Initially, I started with finance because that's where my National Guard uniform knowledge was.
Mm-hmm.
And after getting my degree, I eventually moved into the computer tech programs or computer tech side of house I don't know, it probably would have been 2009, 2010, somewhere around in
Mm.
there. I'd have to look at my resume to be really honest. Um, but since I had a college degree, I had all these certifications and
Mhm.
a really strong background, I ended up moving to the computer tech side.
So before you became a civilian, though, you were deployed.
I was deployed in 2011, 2012.
Ah. So what did you see in your deployments and where did you go?
So I spent a good chunk of my deployment in Kandahar, or I'm sorry, in Kuwait. And then a mission came up in Kandahar Air Force Base, Afghanistan. And I went over there. I was a computer technician doing supply mission in Kandahar Air Force Base, which is a whole nother story. Um, but I spent a lot of time helping people line up for and do convoys out of Kandahar Air Force Base, which is the southern part of Afghanistan, and it was a really big location. Going to smaller fobs and bringing equipment and stuff back because at the time we were doing drawdowns, so we were trying to close up all these smaller fobs and cobs and move them to Kandahar Air Force Base so we can get out of Afghanistan.
What are fobs and cobs?
Forward operating bases, and I forget what COB stands for. I cannot remember for the life of me. But FOB is forward operating,
Okay.
forward operations base. So those were like the little itty bitty ones. I mean, you can basically throw a football from end to end of one of these places.
What did you see there?
So I got I guess you would say, privilege to see these nice long convoys load up and move out, and then days, maybe a week later, come back with half the vehicles missing, or soldiers that won't even look me in the face that I talk to all the time because of whatever happened out there while they were outside the wire on their way back. Or honestly, could have been on the way there to pick up whatever equipment they had to pick up before they came back.
Hmm. And this has something to do with what has happened within the past couple years.
Correct,
Because
yes. Outside of that, I also worked with the SHARP program, Sexual Harassment and Rape Prevention Program. So between seeing convoys come back, missing soldiers, missing equipment, missing people, I also got to listen to all these horrible stories about what's happened to people, both in and out of the military. For some reason, people just like talking to me about what's bothering them. Me being a quiet person, I guess that just makes me a good sounding board, which is awesome because I like hearing people's stories. But being unloaded about these really tragic events and not being able to say nothing or do anything about it just really messed with me. And
But you were in the prevention program, so how did they equip you to handle that information to do something about it?
we were supposed to be basically the funnels to take the initial reports, take the initial information and send it to a professional that's designed to work the cases, or if need be, we would be assigned to work the cases. As far as I'm going to say mental health, how we're equipped to deal with it, we're not. We're just we just get taught how to do the paperwork and what resources to send people to.
Mm.
We're never taught how to mentally deal with what you're hearing and what you're having to deal with.
Mm. Well, that must have been very hard.
It affected me, but I did not realize how bad it affected me until COVID happened, actually. And I was put on. I've had several lung surgeries on my right side, so I have very weak lungs. So I was considered at high risk, so they put me on permanent telework.
High risk medically.
Medically, yes.
Mm.
So they put me on permanent telework. So I worked from home for close to 2 years. Let's see, from early 19 to about a year. It must have been 2 years. To late 2021 when they started asking me to return to the office. And when they asked me to return to the office, I quite literally had a massive panic attack, and my daughter had to calm me down. The thought of going back to an open office environment where people would be standing behind me, walking behind me, having meetings standing directly behind me, always looking over my shoulder, quite literally freaked me out to the point where I was trying to get a hold of my mental health professional and trying to ask them what to do. What should I do? What this is affecting me. What should I do about it?
How did your experience in Afghanistan, plus, kind of being by yourself for several years with all of the COVID stuff, how did that connect into
The ability for during COVID to close my door, being a quiet, isolated. I knew who was in my house. I knew who was around me. I knew my environment very well. So my brain said nobody can sneak up on me because I have such control over my environment. And losing that control by returning to an office was very unsettling.
And is control and kind of the kind of close proximity something that you heard people talk about a lot within
when it came to
the SHARP program?
When it came to the SHARP program, you would find most problems arose from extremely close proximity and or spousal issues.
Mm-hmm.
So the thought of being back in that environment and not being able to control my surroundings is what threw me for somewhat of a loop.
Mm-hmm. So you were by yourself, working your technical job from home through late 2021.
Yes, ma'am.
And you got the shot in November 2021.
I almost got kicked out of the pharmacy that was giving me the shot because I was very, very vocal about getting it against my will.
Oh.
I did not want the shot. I did not want to get the shot, but I was in the middle of medically retiring from my federal uniform National Guard position. And I got a letter from the military saying if I didn't get the shot, they would kick me out before I could retire.
So you were getting medical retirement from your uniform job.
I was in process of
it, and they said that we are going to refuse to give you your medical retirement.
They didn't say they would refuse to give it to me. They told me they would kick me out before I could finish my medical retirement. They never said they refused to give it to me.
Okay.
The letter basically said, and I got a copy of it somewhere at home. In my words, we don't care, get the shot or get kicked out with a, other than honorable instead of a medical retirement. And I was in the process of doing the medical retirement.
Mm-hmm. And so, and this is very interesting. We have had one of the guests on this podcast was Brianna Cespedes, who was given a dishonorable discharge from the Air Force. And she has since reversed that. She's gotten a reverse to an honorable discharge, which was a huge feat.
That's an extremely huge feat. I was basically feared and pressured into getting it. I had over 20 years. When I finally got my retirement in late 2022, I had 24 years and 10 months, and it just seemed like too much to throw away for the shot that I did not want. I'd actually had COVID twice before, and my doctor told me I needed to wait a certain amount of time before I got the shot because it could cause issues. So that's, November of 2021 is when I got the shot. And that was like days after I was told I should get the shot because I was recovering from COVID, and he was scared that it would re-inflame COVID if I got the shot too close.
What happened after that?
So, starting, I think it was October, I started getting the emails. You have to get the shot to be a federal employee. You have until the state to get the shot to be a federal employee. After I got the shot, it's none of my federal job's business what type of medical procedures I have.
It was never to begin with.
It was never to begin with, yes. So December of 2021, I received a letter saying I was being fired for not providing documentation to my federal supervisor, showing him my shot records, which I consider medical records, and he has no business seeing. I was terminated, given the 30 days that's required, which means 10 January 2022, I would no longer work for the federal government. The only job I have had as an adult. After high school, I started working for the federal government. This is all I've known. This is all I've ever known.
Mm-hmm. So you were fired?
Yes, ma'am.
Because you refused to show your papers?
That's a funny way to put it, but yes.
What's
I
interesting.
sounded like German 40, 42
Yeah.
time frame.
Yep. Well, it's true.
Yes.
Well, what's interesting
Mm.
is I believe you said earlier that you actually filled out the online attestation form.
I filled it out after I was fired because I was so freaked out about not having a job.
Mhm.
And then I saw the portion at the bottom after I hit submit that said I have to show my documentation to my boss, which was the hard no line for me. Nobody
Mhm.
needs to see any of my medical
Mhm.
records. If I feel like telling somebody my medical history, awesome. But
Mhm.
you should not be able to demand me show you my medical records. And I consider shot records as medical records. I
Mhm.
mean, the military keeps your shot records in the same file as your medical records. So they obviously think it as well.
That's a good point that you just made. Yes. All right. So you were fired, and then what happened?
So I was fired, and on 10 December, I was fired, 2021. I had 30 days of annual leave. They gave me 30 days until I would be fully terminated.
And let me clarify. This is from your civilian job.
This is from my uh, federal technician civilian job.
Okay.
So me and my boss, my supervisor, I felt got along fairly well. So to make his life easier, I told him what was going on. And I told him point blank, it's like, listen, I have 30 days worth of leave. Y'all gave me 30 days to be out. I'm just going to take my leave to make your life easier so you can accomplish what you want to. This is right before Christmas. They had a bunch of stuff going on. So just to make your life easier, I'll walk away. Well, I have nothing going on now. So it's around Christmas. Nobody's hiring. So I just start researching and researching and researching. And that's when I found Feds for Medical Freedom. Obviously, they were fighting for something I just got punished for. So, of course, yes, I'll join that and see what they have to offer me. After I joined, I believe it was December 21st of 2021, me being fired was rescinded. All of a sudden, I now have my job back.
Whoa.
Weirdly, after joining Feds for Medical Freedom.
And you were very loud about how you had joined Feds for Medical Freedom.
I do not hold stuff back. I am, if I have an opinion on something, everybody around me knows it. While I may be a quiet person, I do not hold feelings in. It's a good way to torture yourself internally, quietly. So yes, I was very loud about it. And when I was unfired, I had two supervisors. I had an office supervisor who basically took the 3 GS-12s, gathered all their information up, and funneled it to my actual supervisor just to make sure he wasn't being hit by so many different people at once. He was basically a funnel man. I called him the same exact day I got the rescinding document, and he seemed extremely happy to have me returning. We were in the middle of a massive security inspection. I was in the middle of changing all the security features and updating all the security features across my whole entire network. So he was like, yeah.
Really?
Beginning of January, I want you to return. I want you to just take this time, just take Christmas, regroup, get ready. Beginning of January, we're going to hit it hard again. So he told me just to stay quiet until January. I think it was the 2nd of January was the first day after Christmas that people were back at work. I logged on fine, went through everything, cleaned up emails like you do whenever you're gone for 30 days. 3rd of January, I was locked out of everything. I could not do anything. I could not log into my computer. I could not log into my email unless I did it on my personal computer. I couldn't do anything. And that's when I started getting emails about returning all of my equipment. All my DoD issued equipment had to be returned.
Was this from an order from your superior or someone above him?
It was coming from my office supervisor and my actual supervisor at the same time. They were both sending it to me. But nobody would tell, neither one of those two would tell me where this information was coming from, what was going on, what was happening.
So was that your superior true in his, I don't know, excitement that you were going to be back on board?
I have no clue. I haven't really spoken to them since early 2022. It seemed like at the time they were happy about it, but as things rolled into 2022, They spoke less, they said less, and none of my questions would ever get answered.
Mm.
Why do I have to turn my equipment? How am I supposed to work? What do you want me to do? What's going on? Nobody would ever answer these questions for me.
All right. So you were locked out of your computer, asked to return all of your equipment, but that's not the end to the equipment story.
I was told to return my security badges and everything. Yes, that is not the end. After I returned all my equipment, I started being told to do DoD federal work on a personal computer, which to me that screams security violation. And every time
it's illegal.
I feel so. Every time it was said to me on the phone, I would reply back, no, I need something in writing saying what I'm doing is correct. I won't just do this. No, I'm not going to do federal work on a personal computer. That's just dangerous. That's how you get spillage. That's how you cause all sorts of security issues. Probably about middle of February, I finally got tired of saying this to them. So I sent them an email saying, if you want me to do federal work on a personal computer, this is what I require. A memo from the security manager authorizing me to do it, signed off by the highest person in the tag wing or general wing, saying that, yes, they approved me to do this type of work on a personal computer, basically removing the risk from me and putting it on them. Because I was scared that if I did something on my personal computer, they would then come after me for doing DoD federal work on a personal device and start using that as a reason to fire me. And I didn't want to take that risk.
Mm-hmm. So what happened in March of 2022 with a memo sent to you?
After 3 months of refusing to do DoD work on a personal computer, I was finally given a off-network laptop that's a DoD laptop to do my work on, which, while not great, is doable, just not very well, but still no access to any DoD information, so I can't do my actual job. When I was told I was getting an off-network computer, I essentially told my office supervisor, I'm glad in the federal system, when somebody violates your EEO right, you can personally sue them, and I will be doing that. So I informed him I was going to be filing EEO complaints, and I was going to pursue them to the extent of the law.
And regarding the lack of
access to the way I was being treated, the desperate treatment I felt I was receiving. After this, I was transferred to the highest person in my section, the G6. And I no longer worked with my 2 supervisor. I now work for another supervisor. And that's when he informed me I was a potential insider threat. And that was the reason why I could not do my job. This potential insider threat had an expiration date of about 45 days, if I remember correctly. But that was telling me why I was not allowed to go on campus. All my equipment was taken from me. All my access to everything was taken from me. I couldn't even go to any National Guard facilities. I was barred from everything. So at the end of that 30, 45 days, whatever it was, I told my supervisor that I would be going to my office unless I am given specific reasons on why I'm an insider threat, what is causing this, what's the reason behind it. Mm-hmm. And all he would tell me was, you're an insider threat, don't come up. You're not allowed to come to Raleigh. You can't come to the office at all. He would not give me any explanation. And I gave him weeks, probably about 2 or 3 weeks. And I sent him this email roughly every day. Never got a reply to it with any valid information, any actual information.
So you were upgraded from potential to a definite insider threat.
I believe that happened probably in April or May that I was upgraded to a definite insider threat. And they used saying I threatened my supervisor when I told him I was going to file an EEO complaint. They used an email I sent when I spoke out against all the mandates, how I felt they were unlawful and they were illegal mandates, so I didn't have to follow them since they're unlawful orders. I actually refused to follow the mask mandate.
Because of your medical condition?
Well, because of my lung surgeries, anything that inhibits my breathing, I get winded walking up steps. Now you want to put a mask on me and tell me to walk up steps. That I will be lightheaded by the time I get to the top.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I can breathe. Yes, I can still run. Just very, very limited.
Wait, so were they using your mask exemption? Did you get it?
I didn't do a request for exemption. I just told them I wouldn't follow any mask mandate.
They were using that
yes, ma'am.
as one of the reasons to label you as an insider threat?
Yes, ma'am.
Wow.
And whenever the potential insider threat ended, I showed my butt a little bit, and I will own that every day of the week. I went to the front gate. I turned my car off. I put my keys in the center console and told them I'm not leaving until somebody actually speaks to me and tells me what's going on. That was the first time in 4 months that I actually got information to tell me what was going on, why I'm an insider threat. I actually got a meeting so I can actually speak to some of these people to face to face.
And did they have straight faces when they told you all this information?
Like it was nothing, like it was just the next day.
Huh.
It was nothing to them when they were telling me all this. And yes, I got to sit at the gate and look at my picture hanging up on the wall with the bolo, be on the lookout for Michael Schaecher with my picture sitting there. It was awesome. I wanted to get a copy of it, but they wouldn't give it to me.
And do you know if that picture was on all the bases in the Raleigh area?
I can only assume, well, there's only one base in the Raleigh area, but there's bases all across North Carolina. I can only assume it was everywhere because anytime I've seen one of these bolos come out, it's been posted in every break room across the National Guard, every entry point across the National Guard. So I can only assume it was posted everywhere. If it's posted there, logic dictates that it would be posted everywhere.
What were you thinking at that time, seeing your picture as like on the wanted list?
After 22 years of working for these people, I was crushed. I was destroyed. Emotionally, just completely destroyed.
How did your friends respond? I mean, you're kind of a likable guy. You had friends in there, surely.
I have a lot of friends, and somewhere along the way, I don't know when it happened, a lot of them were told that I quit and I did not want to be contacted by anybody. I never said this, and I never quit. So I don't know where this came from. And the ones who would reach out to me would only reach out to me if I didn't say anything to anybody about them reaching out to me because they were scared that they would be the next person on the same list as me.
I'm sorry. Isn't it a little bit concerning that just hanging out with someone who's on a list like this would then maybe put you on the list too? Isn't that just not the American way?
It kind of says a lot about the DOD because my situation isn't the only one I've heard of stuff like this.
No, it's not. But weren't your friends concerned about the actions of the DOD?
They were, but only privately. None of them would say anything out loud.
Well, maybe that's why we're still 4 years later, still going through this.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Yep. Oh, wow. Okay. So was there no one else within your base that refused the shot that you know of?
So I guess it would be considered.
Wait, well, you didn't refuse the shot.
I got the shot.
You got the shot.
I just refused to give them my information. I refused to show my paperwork to get inside. So whenever they were sending out these emails saying you have until this date to get shot, you have until this date you got shot, they were doing mass emails. So I have lists of a bunch of people who were in the same boat as me, but whenever it came to me being fired, it was only me on the email. Well, it was me and my supervisors on the email. So I don't know if there was anybody else that didn't, but I knew beforehand there was a bunch of us that were fighting it or standing up to it. I know several people who quit instead of getting the shot. And they just walked away from their federal careers. But I can't tell you because I was locked out of everything, so I had no way to look anybody up.
And for our non-federal employee friends listening to this podcast, if when they sent out the mandate emails and saying you need to get this shot by a certain date, they said if you did not get the shot or if you refused to attest to taking the shot, then you would be all lumped into the same group and you would be fired. I mean, that's basically what they said.
You would be terminated.
That's right. So you called their bluff. You got the shot, but did not show your papers.
I didn't look at it that way, but I guess you could say, yeah, I kind of called their bluff. And initially I failed. I mean, I was fired for a week or two.
And it was because of the Feds
And
for Freedom.
Feds for Medical Freedom
Yep.
definitely saved my job. And Marcus directly sent me an email saying, check your work email. I believe you have some good news in there. And that's when I logged in and saw that I was no longer fired.
Oh, wow.
So they definitely saved my position.
Mm-hmm. So why didn't they just keep you fired?
So I've heard stuff whenever they were briefing me on why I was in the insider threat after the day I turned my car off at the front gate. They said they were advised by the Department of Justice to not pursue firing me or something along those lines. It was told to me. So I would have to go back and listen to the recording. Yes, I recorded them briefing me on why I was an insider threat. North Carolina is a one consent state. So as long as one person knows you're being recorded, you can record anybody's conversation. So I recorded the conversations every time they talked to me after things really started going sideways.
Mm-hmm.
So I have all this on audio as well. But they said they could have pursued it, but Department of Justice spoke to them or told them not to, or something along those lines. I don't know the exact wordage. But I was an insider threat now. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I can't return to work. I can't do my job. I'm just kind of out there floating.
Oh, what do you think their intention was labeling you an insider threat? What were they trying to do to you?
So this is all my opinion here. So I believe that since I stood up to them, I kind of rubbed some people the wrong way, and they couldn't fire me for the COVID reason. So they were looking for another way to possibly do it. So they put me in a weird position where I would act weird and then said I was acting strange on my insider threat form. They wouldn't tell me any information. So whenever I started getting a little irate with not being told what was going on, they put that on my insider threat form.
Mm-hmm.
They took an email from September 9th, 2021, and in a March piece of paper said I was an insider threat from the September 9th email. What's crazy about that, from September to the beginning of December, I had full access to the whole entire network. Admin rights, I could have deleted the entire North Carolina National Guard network, but it wasn't concerning enough until late or early 2022, the email I sent to take my rights away. I could have destroyed the whole network if I wanted to, but I don't want to because I loved my job. I wanted to stay at my job. I was a joke between me and people in my office that I would stay there until they pushed my wheelchair out in the middle of the road and sent me on my way. I would have stayed there forever. I loved it.
Were they trying to get you to resign?
I feel they're trying to get me resigned, and they're continuing to try to get me resigned. My last performance appraisal for the end of 22-23 year, they gave me all ones.
So wait. They've continued to give you points.
Performance appraisals, yes, ma'am. I'm still getting performance appraisals, even though I'm not allowed to do my job.
Even though you're not doing your job, they are paying you
Yes, ma'am.
not to do your job and still giving you performance ratings.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow.
And so, not this past performance appraisal, but the performance appraisal before it, they gave me all ones. I sent them a comment to put on my performance appraisal since I can't log into the system. I don't have a DoD network account, so I can't log into the system. Mm-hmm. They didn't put my comment on my performance appraisal, said I refused to sign, and then sent it on through, giving me all ones, basically the lowest you can get for a federal performance appraisal.
Michael, this is such a wild story. How is it?
I've lived it.
I know. And I've been following your story the whole way since, early 2022. So how do they still get away with this? It's so wild. It's so odd, bizarre.
My opinion is that they dug a hole. They don't know how to get out of the hole without admitting they were wrong for digging the hole. So they're just hoping that they can push me hard enough that I just walk away. I'm too stubborn for that. I'm not going to walk away. I know I was not wrong in what I did. Mm-hmm. The courts say I wasn't wrong in what I did. Hopefully EEOC will say I was not wrong in what I did. We'll see.
Your EEOC case is going to be one to watch, and we're going to get to that, let me ask first, what would you say to people who say, well, that's a really good deal. You're not doing any work and you're being paid for it. And they say, boy, I wish I could do that. But
Uh,
how has this affected you?
I don't believe they're looking at the tertiary consequences of what I'm going through. I've worked since I was 16. I've had a job since I was 16. I burned my way since I was 16. I grew up in a very poor family, and I made something of my life. They've taken that from me. They've taken everything I am and everybody I know from me. Yes, they're still paying me, but at any time they can send me an email, and if I don't reply to that email quick enough, that gives them another reason to write me up. So I quite literally, Monday through Friday, sit on my couch, stare at a computer with my OWA Office Web Access email open to never receive an email.
And have they tested that out? Have they sent you emails that you have to respond to?
Very, 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 very rarely. I might get an email every other month,
Mm-hmm.
but still, I don't want to take the risk because what else do I have going on? I can't do anything else. At Monday through Friday at 3 o'clock, I have to send them an email basically saying I'm alive. I haven't been tasked with any job taskings that are at all since June of 2022 was the last time I actually received a tasking, of which I cannot complete because I don't have access to my notes, to the network, to any testing equipment. So they want me to write a continuity book. Basically, if I get fired, somebody else can take this book and do my job. I don't have access to anything. How do I write that? I don't keep things in my email because our emails have limits. So all of my notes, all of my brain dumps, all of my things that help me do my job are on the computer and the equipment they took away from me. What do you want me to write? I have nothing to write. And still, I haven't been tasked since June of 2022, which was not this current performance appraisal, but the appraisal before that. So what are they going to put on the one that just ended?
So how can these people be held accountable?
I,
And
don't,
go ahead.
I mean, I have my thoughts on how to hold them accountable. It'll never happen. I think these people should be fired. They obviously broke some laws. There are some laws out there to protect my rights as an employed person that they broke, and not only broke in stupendous fashion.
Yeah.
It's not like it was swept under the rug. Oh, we did something kind of insidious.
Yeah.
It's really big and really out there.
Yeah. In your case, I mean, so public. I mean, asking you to do your work on a government secure work on a non-government computer. I mean, that's spectacular.
And the reasoning behind it was we have teams, which you can do a lot of work in teams, but still that's on my personal computer.
No.
You want me to open up Teams and check some messages, reply to some messages? No problem. You want me to open up Teams and sign a document? No problem. You want me to open up Teams and type personal security style information in it? No. Not on my personal computer. That is too risky. There's too big of a chance of some type of spillage happening, and I'm not going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's putting my job at a bigger risk than I've already done. I don't want to do that.
So you are currently putting through an EEO, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission complaint.
Several.
And you say it's not about COVID, it's about these other measures.
It's about my reasonable accommodations never even being addressed and then being used to label me an insider threat. It's about being labeled an insider threat. Mm-hmm. It's about performance appraisals where they just put one, like the one that I was currently on when all this went down. They didn't even give me an option to put information on it. They put one line saying, oh yeah, he did his job. Yeah, they gave me 3s. Okay, cool. I did a lot of work during that time. I've rebuilt the entire security for the telephone systems in North Carolina. I was helping other states build their security systems to meet DoD standards. Mm-hmm. I was helping Guam rebuild their computer system. I had become a linchpin in all telecom on the East Coast. I had taken over video teleconferencing. away from another section that wasn't doing it well and rebuild it and completely build up an infrastructure. They were using my infrastructure to host everything during COVID, and I got no credit for any of it.
Mm-hmm.
It was never put on any of my performance appraisals. And then I got the performance appraisal after that, which was all ones, but I had no job. They wouldn't let me do anything.
And so how far are you through the EEOC system?
So I have one at the EEOC level that just the agency just asked for a summary judgment, and we rebutted, me and my lawyer. The second one, the EEOC lawyer that was handling the first case was waiting for, because they were so close, she wanted to combine the two. I just started another one on how I'm still a potential insider threat.
No. You're an insider threat. You've been
I'm
upgraded.
just used to using potential.
Yeah.
I'm an insider threat after 2.5 years and no end in sight. That's another one.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one. And I'm assuming, may be wrong, but the performance appraisal that just ended, I'm sure I'm going to get all ones a second year in a row. So I'm sure that's going to open another case.
Mm-hmm. So how do you spend your time now? I mean, besides staring at a computer, waiting for the email to come.
During the work hour,
Yeah.
from 6:30 to 3, that is all I do. I watch TV, but I sit on my couch. I've gained quite a bit of weight, and I just sit there and stare at a computer, play with my dogs. I don't go anywhere. I don't do anything. If I go to my mom's house, I do it during lunchtime. If I go to get food, I do it during lunchtime. I seriously stare at my computer all day. I don't go anywhere. And everybody keeps on telling me, well, if they're not sending you anything, why don't you just do something else? Because what if they do? I don't want them to be able to say that I didn't respond. So I don't do anything. I just sit on the couch and stare at the computer Monday through Friday.
You're like Horton the elephant.
I tell all of them I'm under house arrest.
Oh, yeah.
Anytime somebody asks me something, I tell them I'm under house arrest, so I can't help them. I can't do anything. I wanted to go out when my daughter was out of school for teacher's work day and do stuff. I took leave so that way they couldn't contact me. And if they did, I could show them a leave form. It's like I was on leave that day. So no, I didn't answer your question until the next day. And I find myself, even in the middle of the night, I still check the email just in case. So it'll be 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, and I'll still look at the email just to make sure they didn't send me something and I happen to miss it. So I'm pretty much chained to that computer 24/7.
Do you think you'll ever stop looking?
No, I don't. Unless I finally get fired from the federal service, no, I don't think I will stop looking. It's just become such, if I'm not looking, I get twitchy, because what if they send me something? I'm just always apprehensive and always at end. What if they happen to send me something? I don't want to miss it, just in case.
Mm-hmm. So, if you could encourage the average American citizen to do one thing to combat the corruption that we have talked about today and that you have felt the effects of, what would it be?
I feel in my organization, EEO is a joke. It's ignored. Nobody cares about it. They don't care if you can prove there's a law that says what they're doing is wrong. But it's never going to get better unless we just start nailing EEO left and right.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's only a slight law break, which there's not really such a thing as a slight law break. But even if you think it's something small, hit EEO, continuously hit EEO. Eventually, it's going to get to the point that they're going to be so overrun that they're either going to take out the person who's causing the EEO issues, or they're going to start taking things seriously. I was always one of those people that was like, EEO is a joke. Don't worry about EEO. Talk to the person, try to work it out. I don't think that anymore. If something happens to me, I don't care how small it is, the first place I'm going to be sitting is the EEO's office. And if they tell me it's not, if EEO itself tells me, oh no, don't worry about that, it's fine. Okay. But I'm just going to keep on pushing and pushing and pushing.
But it seems like the EEOC is, it's definitely
It's very
protecting.
biased.
Yeah, it's protecting, in this case, the government, not the employer. So it is kind of a joke.
the EEO lawyer that's handling my current EEOC case told me at our first mediation, "Oh, this is COVID. We just dismiss all COVID stuff." I said, "No, no, 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 no.
I can't
Read
believe they
it."
said that.
I got it in email. Um, I was like, "Read it a little deeper," and she goes, "Oh, COVID was just a jump start. You're talking about a bunch of other stuff." I was like, "Yes, ma'am." And that's when she started taking my case seriously. It took her looking past COVID to realize that she needed to look a little deeper.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I think EEOC potentially is a joke, but unless you overrun them, then nobody's ever going to take it serious, because eventually they're going to get to the point where they're showing some major deficits in the number of cases coming in and not being worked,
Mhm.
that the public's really going to start looking at it and be like, what's going on here? And I think that's the only way to fix anything, is to just keep on going at them, keep on going at them, keep on going at them.
For every little thing.
Every little thing. And I'm always been told, combine EEOC cases. You know, if you're filing an EEO complaint 3 or 4 at a time, I don't believe that. I believe you do each one of them individually, because they find any reason to dismiss a case. And if you got 3 on top of each other, they dismiss them all for whatever small reason they can. But if it's 3 separate ones, you can't choose the same little bitty thing to dismiss all 3 separate ones. So now, instead of combining them like I was when I first started this, I do one issue, one case, and I wait for that case to start, and then I do one issue, one case, and now it's a separate number, separate logging, separate tracking, everything. So yeah, it looks like I'm filing a bunch of frivolous cases, but none of my frivolous cases have been deemed frivolous. They've all been valid and been investigated.
Are you at the end of the EEOC process with any one of your complaints?
I'm waiting for the what is it, the AG, whatever she's called, the lawyer that's currently did the mediation, to either accept the summary judgment or deny it. And my lawyer feels so strongly that it's going to get denied that he's already set up a date for me and him to sit down and write up our federal case.
So you're going to go all the way?
I'm going to go all the way. I'm not going to stop. And I won't. And that's something I found out about EEO. You want to go federal.
Mm-hmm.
Because the moment you go federal, it becomes public domain.
Yes.
And people can look at it. When it's in the EEOC, it's private and nobody can see it. So you want to get to that federal stage.
So what do you say to someone who says it's expensive?
It is. I've hurt. I've shelled out a lot of money. But here I am 2.5 years later. I'm still got my job. They haven't been able to push me out or get me to quit. So is your job worth it? Is your dignity worth it? Because I think that has a lot to play in it too.
Mm-hmm. Well, Michael, this has been really fun. This is, I mean, you've had one of the wildest stories of all of the federal employees that I have spoken with.
It's been a crazy ride.
Yep. Well, thank you so much for joining us and telling us all about it.
Thank you for the time.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Please like, comment, subscribe to, and share our podcasts. Visit our website where you can sign up for our latest newsletters and become a member of Feds for Freedom at fedsforfreedom.org.